Hi friends, if you're new here, welcome. Every week we head out on a new adventure, and today we're exploring an incredible Wild West ghost town seemingly frozen in time. Join me at Bodie State Historic Park. Before you start thinking of spooky stories, a true ghost town is simply an old west town that's been completely abandoned, where no one lives anymore. And Bodie is a remarkable example of this. While most ghost towns only have a few remaining buildings, Bodie boasts nearly 200 structures, rivaling what you'll find at just about any other ghost town. This state park sits at nearly 8,400 feet above sea level, and it's located a bit off the beaten path, northeast of Yosemite National Park's Tioga entrance and 13 miles off Highway 395. Now the last 3-mile drive leading here goes over rough, unpaved road, so always check the state park website for up-to-date information and road conditions before your visit. Founded in 1876 and named for William Bodie, who was first credited with discovering gold with his mining partner Black Taylor in the hills north of Mono Lake in 1859. Unfortunately, Bodie never saw the 1877 gold rush that turned Bodie into a boomtown, because he was caught in a severe snowstorm here and he perished on his way back to camp in November 1859. This area was long home to Northern Paiute and Mono Lake Paiute tribes who hunted small game and fished local streams for centuries. Unfortunately, by the early 20th century, only 5% of the original area remained under control of the local tribes after the gold rush drew a flood of miners here. It's believed Bodie was panning for gold off a seasonal creek along the backside of the Bluff, and then followed the path to this area where one of the richest gold strikes in California was discovered. And by 1879, Bodie had exploded into a thriving town with nearly 10,000 residents and over 2,000 buildings. As was often the case when gold was involved, Bodie's mines were swiftly depleted, and in 1881, a mass exodus began as residents left looking for better opportunities and headed to new gold rushes in Utah and Tombstone, Arizona. By 1886, less than 1,500 people remained here, and devastating town fires followed in 1892 and 1932, destroying all but 10% of the town, and its nearly 2,000 buildings were cut down to less than 200, and the last of the residents finally began to leave. Bodie faded into an almost forgotten ghost town until it was acquired by the California State Parks and designated a National Historic Landmark and a California State Historic Park in 1962. The state park works to keep this place true to its history, leaving it in a state of arrested decay, meaning that they don't update or revamp the town. They keep the buildings exactly as they were when the residents left, preserving a wonderful glimpse into the past here. You can stroll along Main Street and peer into the windows of numerous buildings to see furniture, goods, and even layers of dust, which have left everything untouched for over a century here. You can view most of the buildings from the outside, but only a few are open to the public to actually enter in. And I'd highly recommend that, but also make sure to see the outside vantage point from all of the buildings here. They're unique and fascinating. Anne Curry Miller moved here from the Midwest, Minnesota, with her mining husband, and she opened the Miller Boarding House. Many of the buildings are marked with numbers, and you can purchase a walking guidebook for $3 that has detailed information about the buildings and the history here. The picket fence barely still stands here, but the Conway House marks where Thomas Robert Conway and his family left. They were some of the last residents here in Bodie. Originally built in 1882, the Methodist Church still stands here, but the town was also once home to a Roman Catholic church, which unfortunately burned in the devastating 1932 fire. The Miller House is one of the few homes you can actually enter here, and on the wall there are interesting pictures from different eras in Bodie's history. While almost everything here is left like a picture from its Wild West days, the Miners' Union Hall has been transformed into a museum and visitor center. The Union Hall is now filled with a treasure trove of history and original artifacts from the 1800s. You can also take a seat indoors and watch a short film about the history of Bodie here. The original firehouse burned in Bodie's devastating fires, but in the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps rebuilt it just as it would have been. The two-story Swasey Hotel was actually a clothing store and even a casino in its later years. Many Bodie buildings were either named for their function or notable residents who lived there, such as the James Stewart Cain House, who ran the Bodie Bank until 1932. Just peering into the windows inside of these buildings gives you a glimpse back in Bodie's history, anywhere from the 1870s to the 1940s here. After the devastating fires, the Moyle warehouse is not much more than ruins now, but at one time this stone building stored the supplies during the harsh Bodie winters. This schoolhouse was built in 1877, and at one point over 600 students studied here. Now officially it closed its doors in 1942, but if you peer through the windows, you can still see their empty desks, which have been covered with dust for decades. I definitely encourage you to take the paths up. The views from Main Street from above are spectacular, and you get a unique vantage point of the mill. At the far east side of town, you reach the historic Standard Stamp Mill. Now, this area is closed off to the general public due to potential hazards, but scheduled ranger tours can take you for a more in-depth look at the mill, its history, and how the ore was processed here. In fact, at one point, the stamps at this mill would go through literally tons of ore every day, and it produced over $38 million in gold and silver. Bodie had a reputation for being one of the wildest, toughest, and most lawless mining camps in the West. And here you can see all that's left of the Bodie Bank is that large safe. However, it wasn't burglars or robbery that damaged this building, but rather the 1932 destructive fire, which demolished most of the town. Now, interestingly, this bank was never robbed, and there was one nighttime burglary that left with about $2,000. The town jail might look rather small given Bodie's wild and reckless reputation. And interestingly, in a 1881 incident, vigilantes broke in and took out an accused murderer and hanged him. The Sam Leon Bar was opened in 1937, and if you peer into the windows, you can still see the roulette table and slots here. Only the very faded marker number 35 and a few crumbling buildings outline what once was Chinatown. Now, unfortunately, the Chinese people were discriminated against and not allowed to join the miners' union here, so they had to take lower paying jobs and they lived in their own community here. While now it's nearly completely faded away, at one point Bonanza Street stood just behind the saloons of Main Street, and this was Bodie's red light districts, where the ladies of the night would offer their services. In fact, in the far distance, you can see the crumbling remains of what was once the liquor warehouse. Once a hotel, the bright brick building became Bodie's post office in 1879. Next to it was the lodge, which became a furniture business, and finally, Bodie's athletic club. As always, it's incredibly important to remember the leave no trace principles. It's unlawful to take anything from Bodie. Please leave every rock and rusty can in place for future generations to see. And remember, this is a real ghost town, meaning nails and broken glass can be found anywhere. Thank you so much for joining me today. And for more information on this ghost town, see my full Bodie blog post at flyingdawnmarie.com. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. And until next week, I hope you find adventure and encouragement wherever you go. Bye.